Welcome to episode 1 of After the Post. You made it, guys. You made it. I am your host extraordinaire, Renee. I am the founder and CEO of Black First Lifestyle, your digital lounge of self-center where Black history and entertainment collide. And here on episode 1, we are going to be discussing, you guessed it, the Black family unit. In creating this series, our real mission is to expound upon the ideas that we've already spoken about in shorter clips throughout social media, everywhere else on the web, right? We want to dive a little bit deeper into the meaning behind the posts, the importance of the posts, and share our insight and our real thoughts on what they mean to us and society at large. The Black family unit is our foundation, and the role that Black men play in protecting that, right, and protecting Black women specifically and protecting our image is crucial. Like, guys, think about it. For centuries, the Black family has been under attack since the days of enslavement, where Black men were ripped out of the household, separated from their families, their wives, their children, removed in this traumatic way countless times, over and over. Millions of people have had this done to them, and the trauma of that still trickles down to us today. The tactics have changed slightly, right? They had to tweak it to modernize how they pull off the white supremacist delusion. But if you think about it, the end goal is still the same: divide and conquer. Just about 40, 50 years ago, they reimagined another tactic: the war on drugs, the welfare queen, right? All of these things during the 70s, the 80s, were ways that they could still enforce that same old goal: divide and conquer. The war on drugs tore Black men out of the household. The welfare queen narrative tore Black men out of the household. Did you know that in order to have welfare, as a woman that was struggling, you had to prove that you were single, that there was no men in the house? That was the only way the government would send funds and help you. So literally, they created these systems to ensure our separation. Now fast forward to today and our current state of social media. Think about the psychological turmoil of the gender wars in the Black community. And I do this because most of this stuff is online, right? These gender wars aren't really playing out in reality as much as they are online, but it does still play a part because of the perception of it all. This constant anti-Black rhetoric, it tricks the mind. It tricks the mind into believing that we are each other's enemies and that we don't need each other, when in fact that couldn't be further from the truth. It tricks the mind into believing that we can find our happiness outside of ourselves, outside of our race. Interracial dating and marrying is at an all-time high. It's higher than it's ever been, ever in history, right? And that lends to the views of society and how we've progressed, right? But if you look at the statistics, according to Pew Research, it shows that Black men date and marry outside of their race 2 times more than Black women. 24% of Black men that are newly married are married to someone that's not Black. And 12% of Black women that are newly married are married to someone that's not Black. So it's literally doubled. It's twice the amount says something. That says something. We have to take that into consideration. And you know, some people may say, oh, what does that mean? What does that matter? Right? And it matters because who you date, who you marry, who you cohabitate with, who you procreate with, lends to how you view yourself in the world and how you see the world around you and what you do in this world, right? And who you protect, who you believe. It matters. And an example of that happened last month, right? There was a podcast with 2 Black men, one biracial, and on the podcast, well, these 2 hosts of the podcast, they were a guest on another show, on a white man's show, and they made a fool out of themselves on the show, right? And these people will not be named because I'm not naming them on this platform. Why? They had enough coverage, right? They made a fool out of themselves on that platform when that white man made racial jokes about the women of their community, and they sat back and laughed. They made a fool out of themselves. Because if a white man could sit in front of you and disrespect the women of your community while you sit there, you're not a man. You're not a man. You're not a true one, anyway. So that happened. The host of the show, who have expressed that they date interracially, and that goes back to what we were just saying, right? About why it's important, about who you date, who you marry, who you cohabitate with, and how it affects your mind, how you view the world, how you view yourself in the world, etc., etc. That goes back to that, right? These 2 men sat there and were embarrassed on a platform where they thought that they could come up from, right? And that's the thing, they wanted to come up. So they sat there and they let someone degrade the woman of their own community. The backlash that they received from this, was intense, but was also appropriate. So since then, they've apologized. They've been on an apology tour. But the white man, he's just laughed since then. He's been laughing ever since because he doesn't care. And once y'all understand that they don't care, y'all will stop trying to explain so much to these people. But that's neither here nor there. He's been laughing ever since. And you know, it's funny and it's interesting because he's the type of person that if you mention anything about his community, he'll label you, he'll claim that you're anti-synthetic. No, but seriously, guys, think about it. What could it have meant if those men stood up for the Black women of their community? What could it have meant to see that imagery on a large scale like that? Because that white man has a big platform, right? What could it have meant had they made a different decision? Had they have not cowered down at the pressure of white supremacist delusion, what could it have meant? Following the uproar, we then see Ryan Clark of the Pivot podcast make a statement where he expresses his love, his gratitude, his admiration for Black women. And you can go check that clip out on the Pivot podcast. And I think it was a beautiful way to turn the whole thing around. The part of the video that really stood out for me, however, was the accountability portion. See, in the video, he was mostly explaining to the white man why Black women are so important and why all the things that the white man was saying in the video was untrue. And I could have did without that part, right? I don't feel like we need to explain ourselves to these people. And a lot of times we waste time explaining ourselves and trying to prove that we are not the things that they say we are. So the part that really stood out to me, and the part that we reposted on Black First Lifestyle, follow us on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, our website, blackfirstlifestyle.com. Subscribe. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay in the know. The part that stood out for me was when he explained that this couldn't have happened, right, on this large scale. This couldn't have happened. This disrespect wouldn't have been broadcast in this way had Black men not already been the perpetuators of expressing disdain and disrespect for Black women in the public eye. That's the extent of what he was saying. And it's, of course, it's not all Black men. It's not all Black men at all. Let's make that clear. I'm not saying that at all. It's not all Black men. But the few that do feel this negative connotation, this disdain for Black women, they get on podcasts, they get on TV, they're famous, right? And they spew that out into the ether. And that becomes a narrative. So it's not all, it's not even the majority. The majority of Black men, they love us and we love them back. But it's that little few that have the limelight and that have the shine and that have the platform, and they use it incorrectly. That's what makes the difference, and that's why it's important to protect the Black family and ensure the upliftment of the Black family unit at all costs. That white man did not choose those two people for no reason. He chose them for a reason. And y'all gotta understand, in media, right, on TV, on social media, everything, every visual, every sound, everything has a purpose. None of it's by accident. He chose them on purpose. He chose them. There's a saying, I'm Jamaican, there's a saying that goes, Duppy know who for frightened, right? He knew who to choose, because he would have never chose David Banner to come onto his show, because he know it wouldn't have went down like that. He would have never chose. And I know y'all be making fun of this man and y'all don't like him and all that. I don't care. He would have never chose Dr. Umar, because that man fight for us to the end. He would have never chose them. Never. And that's why I want to shout out all the Black men that love us, that take care of us, that make sure we're good, that honor us, that admire us, that see how much we love them, and that see how much we do for them. And do it gladly. You know, that's another thing that I think is misconstrued in the media. And it's on purpose. Everything is to tear apart that Black familial unit. It's on purpose. But I want to shout out to all the Black men that are doing the damn thing. We thank you, we love you, we need you, and we'll never, never leave your side. As you can see, we here, we love y'all. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning into episode 1 of After the Post. I am Renee, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.